And hello good people of the internet, it is I, Tommy Kelly. This is Adventures in Woo. This episode I want to talk about a coin, a kind of topic that has two sides rather than an actual coin, but a figurative, metaphorical coin. And it starts with the kind of notion of Chaos Magick, where the whole kind of ethos, I suppose, around it is to remove the crud, to remove the ceremony and pomp, and get to the very kind of essential nature of what works in magic, with the emphasis being on what works. And how very quickly as chaos magicians, I've noticed that what we do is immediately change a ritual, a working, an idea, something into something that fits us a bit better. And I think there's a couple of problems with that, at least in the beginning, at least when you're not in the beginning of in the beginning of when you're starting out into magic, but also in the beginning when you're trying a new ritual or trying a new approach or a new philosophy or something like that. But then conversely, I just want to talk about giving away then your own self-authority to truth, or to your own truth, in the kind of very Chaos Magick sense of nothing is true, everything is permitted, and a kind of subjective truth where the magician is is the center of power, is the agency of the magic, is the thing that actually makes it work, is the magician, and the belief is a tool, which is the Chaos Magick approach. And that sometimes, at least I have a tendency to, even when I have a feeling of truth, to give away that truth to be subjugated by someone else's truth, in community, in friends, by books, teachers, etc. So the very first bit I want to talk about is this idea of when in Chaos Magick, you are told that, it's to remove all of the unneeded elements and to get to the very core of what works within all these kind of historical magic practices, let's say. And what that is kind of translated into, do as you please, do what suits you, do what is to your aesthetics, do what kind of feels right to you. And I agree with that mostly, and I think the most powerful magic will be something that resonates with you rather than something that resonated with John Dee, Aleister Crowley, or Frank the Magician down the road. Although Frank the Magician down the road is a very good magician, so you should listen to him. And it kind of, what I've noticed, and I've done it myself, so I mean, I'm part of the problem, is that when I come across a new ritual or new practice, new philosophy, a new whatever it is, rather than trying it the way it is described, doing it as described and seeing how that turns out, there's this kind of tendency to change it immediately into something that is more palatable for us, that's more kind of suited to us. And the whole kind of emphasis on Chaos Magick is to do what works. And I think there's kind of a problem in the immediately changing stuff to suit you, in that how do you know which bit works? How do you know which bit is the crud and which is the essential bit? How do you know that the eye of newt isn't the actual thing that makes this particular magic ritual work? Or how do you know that this particular meditation practice that you've slightly altered, you haven't changed the essence of it, the main thing of what it is to drive? And particularly it can be noticeable in things with meditation or any kind of repetitive, like daily work, daily prayers, or daily kind of rituals, in that because they can become boring and they can become repetitive and you don't seem to be going anywhere. It can get quite annoying. You can say counting your breaths over and over again. You can get quite annoyed with that and frustrated and feel, oh, this isn't the right one for me. I should be doing something else. So you switch to noting, and then after a day or two you go, oh, I don't really like this either. And so you switch to something else. It's this kind of roulette wheel that, you never really sit with anything. You never go through the pain of something. You never go through the frustration, break that kind of barrier. And I noticed it in a number of things. I talked to Spud about it when we did the Star Ruby challenge, where people immediately kind of changed the Star Ruby, and Spud did himself, to something that suited him a bit better. Whereas my approach to that was kind of to look at this kind of notion of doing things at least once as described, to see what it's about, to understand the actual ritual that I'm trying to bastardize. Because I might completely enjoy the ritual. So the Star Ruby challenge for me, which was to do a Star Ruby every day for 30 days, was to challenge that part of myself to do someone else's ritual exactly as they described, so that I could understand which bits were the powerful bits, what were they trying to do, what is the overall kind of goal of this. And then in the end, I didn't want to change it. I think the Star Ruby is quite a perfectly fine banishing ritual for me. But I think that it would be important for someone to at least do the Star Ruby themselves a number of times, or any particular banishing ritual, to understand what a banishing ritual is, to understand the kind of what's involved, And then you can, go on and augment it into something that more suits you, with the foundation of knowing what it's meant to be in the first place. And that happened, of course, not just in kind of doing things, but in the kind of notion of results that are to be kind of accepted as proof of magic. When we were doing the kind of the half-peeled orange game that we've done a number of times, particularly back in the days of CMG when I was there, where you would try to magic a half-peeled orange. By magic means, by spooky action at a distance, by woo-woo. You couldn't ask someone to do it, you couldn't do it yourself, all of that kind of, thing. And people immediately would kind of change that and change what the notion of magic was. A lot of that was trying to somehow prove a point. I don't know if it was very, very Facebooky, social media, people trying to, actually other people out. But some of it was this kind of notion that I can play at my own game and still consider the game has won, in the sense of, like, say you're doing a 30-day jogging challenge and you're going to run 5 kilometers every day, and that's the challenge, and you go, yeah, but I'm going to do it on my bike, and you go, right, fine, like, I mean, you have 30 days of going 5k on your bike, and it's great, you're going to get exercise, you're going to be healthy, it's going to be all great for you, but you're not doing a 30-day 5k jogging challenge. So that's kind of my kind of feel around any kind of stuff when you come across a new ritual, going back to the half-peeled orange thing, is that, and then people would accept anything as a kind of a win, like enchant for a half-peeled orange, get a picture of a lime on your Facebook feed and go, yeah, look, I won, there it is, I got a lime. And it's just like, well, did you win? Because remember, the whole thing of it is, if it works. And we have to kind of go, why, a lot of these times, why is my magic working? Why isn't these things happening? Why is my sigils not doing or whatever? And just sigils, it's hard not to do them. It's hard not to do them incorrectly. Hard not to do them correctly. It's hard to get them wrong. Why isn't my money magic working or whatever? Because, well, have you at least done it as described, as prescribed, to understand the nature of these things? And if you haven't, maybe try going back to basics or back to the classical kind of way of doing this kind of thing. The other thing that's important in this kind of thing is this, and it comes up a lot about the whole notion of being autodidactic, which is self-learning. You learn yourself, rather than going to college, you learn yourself or have a teacher or a guru or whatever. And an awful lot of us are that, in that, because there's no real kind of, I suppose, wisdom school that you can turn up to and go, hello, Alistair Crowley module, please. And so we have the tendency to go off and learn all these things ourselves. But the problem with that as well is that you only kind of gravitate to stuff that, in a sense, you agree with in a large way, that seems resonant with you, and that kind of reaffirms the ideas that you already maybe have about these things. You might, a new book will always kind of widen your scope and widen your kind of experience of things or your understanding of stuff, but is it always in the same area? Is it always around the same thing? Is it just widening and reinforcing an idea that you already have? And that's another kind of problem I think you can have with the Chaos Magic approach of just doing what suits you, in a sense, or resonates with you, or is about you, and that you're never challenged. You never get to the uncomfortable bit of learning that you would say when you go to college, where you have to learn something in the subject you want to understand, but it's a boring bit, or it's something that you disagree with or whatever. It's like when I was doing aromatherapy at college, and there's a whole section where we had to learn bones and we had to learn different things, and it's like I wouldn't have done that if I was just learning aromatherapy. I wouldn't have learned muscles, the names of muscles. I wouldn't learn how to work. I would just have learned the flower, or the essential oils. I keep saying flower essences for aromatherapy for some reason. I just would have learned what they were about. Wouldn't have gone into the kind of more anatomy and physiology things. And the challenge of being forced to do that as part of a greater course, when you come out the other end of it, you're a much more rounded appreciation of the entire thing that I mightn't have, probably wouldn't have. In fact, I know I wouldn't have done had I just learned aromatherapy by myself. And you can do that to all kind of degrees within anything you're learning, but particularly in, say, a Chaos Magic approach, it's important to listen to people you disagree with and try out their ideas. Not to get into an echo chamber. People always ask me why I watch YouTube videos or read books or whatever of people that I don't necessarily have everything in common with. Number one, I think you're allowed to disagree with some elements of people's opinions or work and still enjoy an overall kind of thing. I think it's not needed to agree with someone 100% in order to enjoy and understand and get benefit from the work. But also, I don't want to only listen to people who agree with me. I don't want to read books that I agree with. I want to hear other voices, people saying things, and because it's in that kind of stretching that you know, it doesn't mean that you then have to totally agree with them and change your mind about it, but it's just like at least know what the other side is saying or what the different view is saying. Because sometimes I'll be watching or looking at my YouTube suggestions, and there'll be something coming up. Go, oh, I don't want to hear what he said. Like Dawkins comes up or something, because I don't want. But it's not necessarily that I don't want to hear it. It's like I don't want to be challenged. Sometimes, not always. Sometimes I just don't want to listen to Dawkins. For God's sake, who does? And so, you know, I kind of make myself do that and look at it and make sure I'm being exposed to all different sides of these things, just to not be in an echo chamber and not to kind of contract into feeling I know everything, or everything that just because it feels, I have the feelies that it feels right to me, that it's truth, because we all know that it's hard to push our boundaries, it's hard to let go of things that no longer serve us, and we have very different or very intricate psyches that, you know, can blind us to different things. We don't want to see things, we can, you know, we don't want to accept things, all of that. So that's kind of what I just want to say about the, you know, if you're getting into a Chaos Magick, or you're doing a Chaos Magick, you've been doing it for a long while, to make sure to challenge yourself to do things as described, so that you know, you understand it rather than immediately changing it to something, so that there is this kind of lack of an echo chamber going on, and kind of as a more wider philosophy towards your magic practice, to challenge yourself, to make sure you're listening to voices that wouldn't agree with, that you're doing stuff that you wouldn't necessarily just resonate with immediately, you know, to see, because you might, or you might not, but at least you'd understand it. Now, the flip side of this coin, this metaphorical coin that I wanted to talk about, is then the other side of it is to not then give away your feeling of truth to someone else. And I don't mean that, well, you could be, like, literally, you could, you know, you could bow before the guru or the master or whatever, but that's not really what I'm talking about. It's more that, say, you have a very well-rounded idea about what life is about, or what magic is about, or about who you're about, or what's a good meditative practice, or what's a good banishing ritual, whatever it is, whatever part of your life is. And then there's someone who is, you know, you're reading a book, or you're watching a TV show, or someone on a Facebook forum or whatever, and they disagree, and they seem to have a kind of an authority. And by that I mean they could have an authority as in a social standing. They could have an authority in the sense of that they have done the work. So say you're talking to someone who's, you know, and you're into Zazen, and then you're talking to Brad Warner, and he has a very different opinion of you about Zazen, but you have a good feel to it or whatever. To not immediately just give away to Brad Warner's opinion of Zazen because, well, he's done it for 35 years, so like, don't discount it either, but it's just kind of to feel okay with accepting your own truth at times when it feels appropriate, rather than just immediately giving it away. Because one, no one really knows what's going on. Everyone just kind of has a suspicion. Some people have a greater suspicion, or at least claim to have a greater suspicion of what's going on than others. But not everyone's path is the same. Brad Warner, you know, he's big into Dogen. He loves his Shobo Genzo. He has his two teachers that, you know, give him a particular flavor of Zen. And so that particular flavor of Zen might be your particular flavor of Zen. So, you know, not to just immediately have to accept it because it's an authority, or, you know, because you read it in a book, or someone on Facebook said it who seems to know what they're on about, or someone on Reddit. And I noticed I've done this on numerous occasions. One I can kind of remember that it's quite interesting is that I was reading Jason Miller's book about financial sorcery years and years ago. And there was a whole section in it where he's talking about, you know, getting out of debt, and you have to really get into this kind of, you know, here's what you have to do. You have to get yourself together, life together. And I was going, oh, right, okay, right, geez, I have to do this. And I felt this immense pressure. You know, here's this authority, here's this doing thing. And I was kind of finishing the chapter, going through it, and then I went, hold on, I'm not in debt. Why am I feeling this kind of pressure from this kind of, because it was coming from this authority. You have to do this, and Jason didn't mean it, of course, like that. He was saying, like, the kind of situation is, get out of that is a good idea, but it was just kind of, I had lent this authority of truth over to the book, more to the book, I suppose, than Jason, because I don't know Jason, other than interactions on Facebook. But and it's kind of, that was an eye-opener to me that, oh, I might be doing that in other ways. I might be kind of, I have a kind of a sense of what awakening is, what insight is, but because it doesn't sound the same as what someone else has, who I have put in a position of authority, then I'll negate my feelings of it, or my understanding of it, or I'll put it down a level as not being as great as someone else, just because it doesn't look the same towards someone who in I sense I have probably given some sort of authority. Authority is a weird word. I mean, not in that they have, you know, not like the authorities like the police or the guards as we have here or that, but has a kind of an experience, who's someone who understands what they're talking about and can command, can command the subject, or, you know, has a command over the subject, whatever, rather than an actual, you know, whip or a sword and has an authority or gun or whatever it is. I hope you understand what I mean by authority in that. So yeah, it's just a kind of a flip kind of notion that I've come across, which is the, you know, listen to what other people are saying, do the rituals or do the practice as described so you understand them before you change them. Don't immediately just change them, because there's this danger that we have of being autodidactites, that we don't push ourselves into areas that would challenge us in the way that if we did a standard type of, say, college curriculum or schooling or mystery school or something, you would be challenged. You would be told to do things that you wouldn't want to do, and therefore get a bigger understanding of the whole thing so that you become a more complete kind of picture of what the mystery is. But then equally, trust yourself and don't give away your power, don't give away your authority over things just because someone who has a different experience of you, a different idea, and even if it's like, I don't know, if it's the Pope and you know, 50 billion Catholics around the world think he's true or whatever, you know, be the guy who doesn't, you know, be that guy. You know, the picture of the Nazi, I was going to say, it's not a march, but like some sort of a gathering, whatever, and everyone's doing the Nazi salute, but there's one guy with his arms folded. You know, be that guy in certain situations, you know, and well, in all Nazi situations, but in you know, don't just give over your authority, don't give away your truth, don't give away your things to books, to people, to social media, to the algorithm, to whatever, you know, and it's told an awful lot these is what to think, how to think in general in our life, you know, and swayed by public opinion and all that. And it's kind of have a return, and I have to do this, return to your own inner inert value and sense of truth and sense of what's right for you in the proper chaos magic thing, what works for you, because, you know, nothing is true and everything is indeed permitted. So that's my kind of notion around these two flip bits, and I could repeat it again, but no one needs to hear me. I hope I'm making sense in what I'm saying. And yeah, so good people of the internet, until next time, may you find the most challenging truth that you have ever found, and may it widen and expand your horizons. May you become a much better person, much more unique individual in this world, able to display wisdom to those around you, so that you can tend to the part of the garden that you can reach and make it the most wonderful garden that is in your vicinity, and but also be bearer of your own truth, plant your own flowers, grow them your own way, having gained the knowledge from everyone else. So be well, and may our best days be ahead.